Pavles. Awesome. So, hey all, this is Anand here from Native Puppets. And if you could just go in and type 1, which means the audio is all good and you can hear me fine. Perfect. Sweet. So it's a wonderful Saturday evening or early Sunday morning from wherever you are. Welcome to the Meet the Expert webinar series with Goran Pavles. We are super excited. Goran has a brilliant filmography. This is just for you to get a look at some of the really cool projects that he's worked on. So we couldn't be more excited to have Goran talk about his experiences in the industry and how he goes about creating these really cool effects. Before we get started, I am just going to do a quick introduction about what Native Puppets is. We basically are an online school where we teach animation, character animation, and we are looking at working with Cebas on providing training solutions for Thinking Particles, and that's going to happen early next year. So just stay posted. And so the student geography is spread across, just because it's an online school, and you could just be anywhere. And the core idea at Native Puppets is that we provide training by mentors who are working professionals in the industry. So they could be anyone working, in a studio, but have the passion to teach and share knowledge. And since it's an online platform, everything gets archived, and people are able to go back in history and check off any kind of tutorial or any kind of training material that they would like to see. Apart from that, Native Puppet also provides a lot of workshop across India. Now I know there are people from across the globe today, but that's what we've been doing. That's a really quick intro about Native Puppets. I would also like to have a word from Cebas. We have their marketing manager here today, Cedar. You can just give her a quick hi, and you spell it out as Cedar. And she has prepared a really sweet video welcoming everybody. So I'm just going to pull up that video. And in just a minute.
Hello from Cebas Visual Technology. This is Cedar Tommy. I'm the social media coordinator and office coordinator for Cebas. Cebas is indeed very excited today to introduce you to Goran Pavles, P-A-V-L-E-S, Pavles, first ever live webinar broadcast from Bangalore, India, hosted by Native Puppets. Thank you so much for being here, and it is also the first ever webinar by a major Hollywood visual effects studio touching on thinking particles in India. This live webinar is jointly organized by Cebas and Native Puppets. Thank you to Goran especially. Goran has multiple years of experience in visual effects and thinking particles. Do visit his PavlesVFX.com. We will let Goran introduce himself and his work. Suffice to say here at Cebas and our community of TP users that Goran is a popular figure with us here. We are very happy to have you here presenting today. Please remember to ask questions on thinking particles. I will give the mic back now to Native Puppets.
Webinar. All right, so that's Seda for you now from Cebas. So she's here today, and she'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have towards the end of the session. So I'm going to try and find a way to share the results. Yeah, I have very quickly ended the results today. So somebody asked how many of us are here today. We have a packed house actually, and I'm waiting for people to just come in. There are it's going to be a little more than 100. 1 second. And I'm pretty sure it's just going to increase by the minute. All right, so I'm going to invite Goran. Hey Goran, can you just come on the microphone and your webcam and take over to the session and talk a little bit about yourself, your journey.
Hello everyone.
Over to you.
Thank you for joining. And good morning in India. I guess I should just start off. Anand, I cannot see the. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's start. So 10 years ago, I was introduced by a friend, roughly 10 years ago, to 3ds Max. And back then in Switzerland, I was like a clerk in an insurance company. I had no idea about 3D visual effects or anything. And when I saw the software, I was just like, what is this? How can I use this? What can I do with it? I had no idea, and anybody else in my social environment didn't know anything about it. So I was playing around, reading through the forums, and I started realizing, hey, this is amazing software. It can do so much. But I also saw that there is, like in movies, there is effects that kind of feel like Max can do that, but I didn't know how. I just knew like there's P-flow, there's afterburn, and I tried my best, but my results weren't really good. And in the forums, I realized, hey, but I'm not that bad. Like, even though I didn't have the education, I'm not that bad. I can do it. Just the results weren't good. And at some point, I came across this plugin called thinkingParticles, and I started using it and started learning it, and suddenly my results became much better. It was like really easy to learn, but it was very effective and very powerful. And while I was learning it, I met new people, and my results became better. So the people noticed me, and one of these people is Joe Scar. And Joe Scar, I think he's in here today, so say hi to Joe. If you haven't heard of him, he's like the man when it comes to thinkingParticles, most experienced guy in thinkingParticles nowadays, I would say. And he opened up the door for me to enter the industry. So thanks a lot, Joe. And once I started working in the industry with thinkingParticles, my career just jump-started, and thinkingParticles basically enabled this. So the first 8 years of my career, I was mainly working in thinkingParticles and doing all the effects, and everything was connected to TP. So today in this webinar, I want to bring to you thinkingParticles closer if you haven't used it yet, and if you are interested in working with effects. So hopefully it can enable you as well a career in visual effects. So before we start, I want to say thank you to Cebas and thank you to Native Puppets for organizing this event, and hopefully it will be helpful to you. So thank you so much to us for creating this plugin that enabled my career and brought me where I am today. So this webinar, the roadmap, is going to be just a quick overview. So I'm going to introduce myself, what I use, what I do. Then we're going to talk about the effects industry, what is effects, and what does an effects artist need to know and kind of is like, or usually the typical effects artist, what are his skills, what are his interests, and so on. And then we're going to talk about thinkingParticles. I'll give a quick introduction for those who have never seen it before. And then we're going to go deeper into the matter. And first of all, I will talk about projects that have been done with thinkingParticles, and show a little bit what can it do. And then we're going to a little bit go deeper into the project 300, Rise of an Empire, where I think was a very challenging effects task. And after that, we're going to dive again into thinkingParticles. Before that, we're going to look at how to learn thinkingParticles, how it's easiest to learn it. And then we're going to dive into thinkingParticles again and create a AutoJointing system. And we're going to look why AutoJointing, how to approach it, and how simple it can actually be to make a fairly complex system with this tool, with very simple methods, which is the key. Keep it simple, but make complex stuff with simple solutions. And after that, we're just going to quickly talk about showreel and how to approach getting a job in effects. And then at the end, we're going to have a questions and answer sessions. Okay, So let's start. Who am I? So as you know, my name's Goran. I've been working in effects for the last roughly 8 years. And mainly I've been using Max with thinkingParticles in combination with Fume, Krakatoa, Genome, Stoke, and all these plugins around Max and visual effects in Max. And then in the last year, I have switched to dive into Houdini and learn a little bit about the Houdini world. So if you are here from Houdini and you want to know how does it compare to Max and thinkingParticles, feel free to ask questions at the end. I'll be happy to answer those. So as you heard before, I was an accountant. I had no idea about movies or visual effects, and I started learning it just by doing. I had really a lot of fun, and I was helped on the way by people like Joe and other names. And so my point is, I never went to school for visual effects, and I'm not saying don't go to school. I'm saying go to school if you have the chance. But if you don't have the chance, don't give up. You can do it no matter what, as long as your interest is strong enough and as long as you don't give up. And here comes the key with thinkingParticles. It is really simple to learn, and it can give you very quickly very good results. So everybody can do it. There is no exceptions. Yeah, what do I like about visual effects? There you go. What do I like visual effects? Visual effects is a field that is kind of technical. It's very artistic and very technical at the same time. So if you have interest in entering digital effects, in effects, not visual effects, just effects in general, it is a technical field, and this is what I love about it. You can be very nerdy, you can be very technical, you can apply math, you can apply coding, you can apply exactly technical art. There we go. It's challenging every single day. I mean, you have sometimes dull moments where you have to do the same effect again and again, over and over again. But then preparing these effects, working with people, it's always challenging, and there's always something new. So yeah, this is amazing about visual effects. And how I got here, I think, yeah, I told you, I started and just learned it in the internet, in the forum, talked to people, was always trying to help other out and think about their task that they're trying to do in the forums. Like, I would be like, oh, this is an amazing idea, I'll try it myself. And then you keep learning and you keep communicating with people, and then, you know, a door opens here, a door opens there, and you get ahead in your career. Okay, so the effects industry, the duties and the skills. Well, what does an effects artist do? As you all know, it's mostly about explosions, buildings crumbling, avalanches, water simulations, tree simulations, simulations. So what does that mean? You're basically animating things with procedural rules. You try to not put keyframes in, but you create rules that drive your effects. So if you want to be an effects artist, it's really good if you have some kind of technical understanding or logical thinking, but it's not necessary. There's a lot of artistic people that can do very amazing results. They have ideas, they have like a creative mind, and not necessarily, you know, can do matrix math or script or anything, but they can still be effects artists. And what I find very useful is when you have a feeling for physics, feeling of weight, feeling of how does water behave, like how does a splash, you know, travel through the air and then the driplets kind of fall apart and becomes dust or mist? How does something heavy fall on the ground? How does an airplane behave in air? Like basically feeling for the physics, so you can put it on the screen and it feels natural. So this is one kind of major skill I think one should have for doing effects. And lastly, I think coding and scripting is it's a very helpful thing to have. It's not necessary. Again, there's artistic people who don't do it, but if you have it, you will stand out. Your work is going to improve. Your work is going to be very fluent, and you can solve problems that other people might not be able to because you can tell the computer to do it. And where coding comes in effects is it comes in repetitive work. If you have a setup and you want to make that setup just execute 1,000 times, you don't want to click 1,000 times the same button. You just let the computer do it. Or if you have a setup that needs to be shared with somebody else, with scripts, you can do this. You can basically create a tool and that holds, like you encapsulate your effect setup inside the tool that you scripted, like in Max, and then you give it to somebody else, and this person doesn't have to understand everything inside the setup because you just expose parameters that the person can use. So you make sure other people can use your setups and do effects with it. And then lastly, if you want make sure the results that go to compositing are the same from between artists, so the values are the same, so they can set up an automatic system, then you can do this with scripts. You just you hit the button and it just sets presets in your settings on render settings or whatever it needs to be done. So this is, I think, where scripting and coding becomes very important. But again, if you want to do effects and you want to be an artist, you don't have to know it. And another important thing is you have to be willing to work in a team. There is no one-man show. When it comes to big effects, movie effects, there's hundreds of people doing this, very talented people from very different backgrounds, and you need to know how to work in a team. So I think I skipped here a little bit the points, but doesn't matter. It's still it's all true. So let's go to the next point. So here we go. Healthy competition. The visual effects or the effects departments usually consist of all these technical people, and all of them have like this ideas. There's a drive to kind of solve stuff, to bring in solutions. Like that, everybody has an idea how to approach an effect, and it's very inspirational environment. It's I have an idea, I share it. Another person might not agree because he has his own idea, but my idea might trigger something in his mind, and then he has like 5 new ideas, and then that triggers mine, and so on and so on. So it's kind of a little competition, who's going to do the better job, but at the same time we all feed off each other, and it's a really, really interesting thing and environment. I really like that. So there is a healthy competition. Might be a little difficult at times, but most of the time it just inspires you. So deadlines and client requests. This is where it can be a little bit frustrating from time to time, because you do something you love and it's a very creative work, but you have to put it into limits, like basically in a frame, and the frame is a time frame and the requests by the client. The client pays and the client has the last word. So you might not always agree with it, what the requests are, or why you have to work more hours on it because the deadline's coming, but it's a job, and it basically you have to just learn to deal with that. But it's still an amazing job, and it's totally worth it. So just to know, this is the effects industry. It can be stressful at times, and it can be frustrating, because everybody, again, has its own mind, own idea how things need to look. But as long as you're not declined, you don't have the last word. Still, effects, I love it nonetheless. And again, teamwork is the key. You have to be able to work in a team. Otherwise, you're just going to stand behind. And if people don't like to work with you or cannot work with you, then it's not going to work. I mean, you can work from home, but I personally prefer to work in a team. So it's, you know, all these movies, there's like hundreds of people working together. And also you're working in between different departments. So you're in a chain of process. There's like modeling, rigging, animation, you know, effects, and then lighting, compositing. So you're getting stuff from other people that have a totally different understanding of what they need to do, of CG basically. And then you come from effects, you come in with technical skills and technical understanding, but you don't necessarily understand what they're doing, and they don't necessarily understand what you're doing. So you need to be able to communicate to them, why do you need something in a certain way? You know, you have to be able to kind of communicate it in a respectful way so they enjoy working with you and they enjoy making a change for you. And at the same time, when you give work away, you have to put yourself into their shoes. How are they going to receive your work? Are they going to have to kind of figure out for hours what that means, what you gave them, how they use it? Or are they just going to get it and be like, oh, this is it, this is awesome, I can use this, I can work with this. And then they enhance it. And then they show you their result and you're like, wow, what, you did that with my work? This is amazing. You just like, you know, you just made it so much better. And that gives you back like amazing like motivation to give this person again really good work. So yeah, and at the end, having fun. I mean, that's the key. And I think pretty much everybody in the industry is having fun. All right, so if you have direct questions, maybe you keep them, like you write them down and keep them for later. I won't be able to answer questions during the webinar. I mean, while I'm talking. It's, yeah, okay. So next point.